Hi there, folks. Andrea Cox here with thehealthyhaven.net and alkalizewithandrea.com, and I am so excited. Why? Because I have Bryan Reeves on today. Bryan Reeves is absolutely amazing. He is a life coach and a relationship coach, and I'm just going to call you a relationship coach
Let's just
today.
go with it. Let's just go with it.
And let me tell you, first of all, I'm going to ask you, can you give yourself a definition, or do you not like to define yourself? And then I'm going to tell our audience how I actually discovered you. Go ahead.
Can I define myself? Boy, that's a $1 billion question. I've been avoiding definement my whole life, but I think for the purposes of context in this conversation, yeah, I'm an insight ninja. I love insight. I love awareness. I've been hungry for self-awareness and, what makes human beings do what we do for 30 years. So I'm 40, by the way. So, since I was 10 years old, I've been asking these questions. And so we'll go with relationship coach for now. Yeah, that
Nice,
works.
because I fell upon Bryan, you, by accident, actually. I was researching something called Shadow Men, and I found someone's blog, and then I found you, and I saw a video. And I believe the video, and our audience will have to look this video up. This video will probably go viral on YouTube now. I believe the video was called The Biggest Mistake Men Are Making, or maybe The Biggest Mistake Men Are Making in an Argument, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and what you said in it was so on point. I thought, okay, is this guy in drag or what? Because he has got us women pegged. He's got us down. He's either been through the ringer through relationships and learned a lot, or this guy is just the guru of relationships. And I had recently I'm in a new relationship, and I had recently worked with another relationship coach prior to meeting you. And once I saw this video, I knew that you knew what you were talking about. And you basically were saying what in that video?
Well, I was basically saying, and you'll have to watch the video to get the whole thing. We don't want to go into all of it here, but the basic point was the thing that men do wrong, and we just don't realize it, is that we meet our women at what I call the level of the complaint, right? The level of the complaint. Because men, and when I say men, I really mean kind of the masculine mind. We orient towards the world like it's just a collection of problems to solve, right? We just want to solve problems. Think about it. In business, if we solve a problem, we make money. In sports, if we solve a problem, the problem of the defense, we score the goal and we win the game, right? In science, if we solve a problem, we fly to the stars. And so the thing is, though, then we take that problem-solving mentality into our relationships with our women, and our woman shows up with what we hear as a problem, and we want to meet her right there and try to solve it. But the feminine heart does not see the world as a collection of problems to solve, right? She's much more oriented towards experiencing relatedness and connection. And so a lot of times, and I'll demonstrate with something that happened to one of my good friends with his wife. But a lot of times a woman, she brings what sounds like a complaint or a problem to a conversation with a man. He's like, oh, problem, let's solve it. And she's thinking, it's not about the problem. It's about my experience of connection. My best friend of 30 years was telling me how his wife, one day they were sitting in their living room, and she was really upset about something, and she was saying, I just don't feel connected to you. I don't feel like you're really here. And he's thinking in his mind, what the F are you talking about? I'm sitting right here in the room. How can you not feel connected to me? Because again, in his mind, he's meeting her at the level of the complaint. He just thinks, I'm here, everything's actually okay. What's the problem? Right? And she's got a whole, I call it the underbelly. Right, there's the problem itself, like the technical details of it. Whether that means you forgot to bring home the milk, or you forgot my anniversary, or you didn't do what you said you were going to do. Whatever that sort of the level of the complaint is, there's this whole underbelly that says you don't love me. I don't feel connected to you. I don't feel you present. You're not showing up for me. I don't feel safe. There's all this stuff underneath that men miss completely.
I agree. I agree. And was it you that said that us women are after this feeling? We're after a feeling. I'm almost positive it was you that we're after a certain feeling, and we don't, when we don't feel that way, like possibly the way that you got us to feel in the beginning, that that something's amiss. Was it you that said that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was saying that our women, and again, I'm kind of couching this in a heterosexual context, but this plays out in gay relationships also, because it's really a masculine feminine dance. And so what men don't get is that there's a whole feeling experience that our women are dying for. They're aching for. They're aching to feel our presence, our physical, embodied, conscious presence. And most men, we're checked out. We're off in our happy place, wherever that may be, even if it's not that happy. We're kind of off solving problems in our head. We're either running away from problems that we can't solve, or we're just busy engaging in the problems that we can solve, like work, like sports, sitting and watching a football game. Within 2 hours, we get to see if the problem was solved or not.
Ooh,
but
that's a good analogy, actually.
Well, it is, and the reason we struggle in relationships is because it seems like the problem is never solved.
Yeah, and men
right?
really see it. Let me ask you something. Men really, do they really? This is kind of an off the wall question. Do they really assess how well they're getting along with their partner or their significant other in a heterosexual relationship before they'll actually commit, like get engaged or get married? Do they really assess that? Was it you that told me men have to date, or it was someone I heard, like, date a woman for like 8 weeks minimum before they even decide if they want to be with her? Is that true?
That's a really interesting question. I love that question because that points to something else.
And I didn't write any of these down. I just love your philosophy, and I'm like, I'm just going to belt out what comes to mind. Go ahead.
So this is beautiful, and this points to, again, one of the fundamental challenges that men and women have in relationships. So men, we are constantly seeking for freedom. Freedom. Even like that movie Braveheart, it's like cliche that it's every man's favorite movie. Freedom! That scene in Braveheart, which just gets me all excited just thinking about it.
It doesn't sound like a chick flick, so it's not something I've probably seen. But I think Kevin Costner was in it, right?
Mel Gibson.
Okay.
But freedom, meaning also, again, if you look at solving a problem, when we solve a problem, we're free of that problem, right? And then we're just looking for another problem to solve. So anyway, take this in context of our relationships, because when a man goes into a relationship with a woman, he's taking on a problem that he will never be able to solve, right? And so that's why we're both drawn to it, because it's like the ultimate mystery that part of us, we're aching to dive into, and yet we're horrified of at the same time, right? Because we want big problems. We rise, our masculinity, we rise to challenge. So we want challenging women, right? But the thing is, a worthy woman, she will never be a challenge that we can solve. And we wouldn't want to be able to solve her. But we don't know that, right? So again, this is the dilemma. So we get into relationships, and immediately, within a few months, once the honeymoon part wears off,
And sometimes the honeymoon, I don't want to interrupt you, but sometimes it wears off super quick, right? Right? Like you're 2 months in and you're like, what's going on here,
Absolutely. It can wear off immediately, but what's happening is, as a man, I'm starting to feel burdened by relationship, by obligation, by, especially, and this is key for women to hear, when a woman makes me responsible for her happiness, that's kind of the beginning of the end. Because most men struggle with their own happiness. Now, if I've got to do things and dance a certain way and show up a certain way, and because your happiness depends on it, which is what most relationships do, Well, that's just a recipe for long-term dissatisfaction or short-term explosions and implosion of the relationship, right? And so, the point that I really want to make here is that men will choose a woman enthusiastically, the woman who supports his desire for freedom the most.
Mm,
Which does,
interesting.
yeah, it's very
Yeah,
interesting.
I
What's
believe
that?
that, and I believe that. And don't we as women oftentimes lose ourselves? You know, here we are, because let's face it, men are attracted to happy, outgoing women that are, you know, out there doing their thing or whatever. Am I right? I mean, I get literally flooded with emails daily on social media like, "Oh my God, can I take you?" Blah blah blah. Because I'm always doing my thing. I'm always either going on the news, or I'm putting out a blog post, or I'm doing yoga with my girlfriends. But isn't it true that us women tend to often lose ourselves? And I know yeah, do you coach men more than women, or both? Just out of curiosity.
Both.
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 So, because you seem to really have women down, but it
Yeah.
seems like you would be really helpful coaching men as
Yeah.
well, and on how to relate to their women. And so isn't it true that we often lose ourselves, and then before you know it, we're a month into the relationship and our girlfriends aren't around, or we're meeting them like at the gym just to kind of fit them in. Or, you know, and men do that too. Men kind of drop their friends for a little while or what have you. But
Yeah.
I feel like us women, we kind of take on a relationship as, you know, kind of a project ourselves, and we want to, you know, make everything, we have these fairy tales in our minds that, you know, he's supposed to show up with flowers every night. What are you talking about? You know,
Yeah.
and I have 3 sets of flowers in my home right now, just so you can see. But you know, we think that it's supposed to be like this big fairy tale and everything's supposed to be perfect, and we kind of let our I don't want to say ourselves, not in the physical, but eventually that sometimes happens too, which is whoa.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
our lives go, the fun, our personal lives go, and men aren't attracted to that. They want a woman that's happy, that's out with her friends, that does, you know, not every night, but don't you agree with that?
Well, I do. Here's what women don't realize, and it's so important for them to keep in mind is men are attracted to light. We're attracted to radiance. You know, we're like that fish swimming in the ocean, and then there's this little lure that kind of drops in the water and glimmers and catches some light, and our attention just goes, "Ooh, I want that," and we go over and try to eat it. Right? We're attracted to light,
It's a great
and that's
analogy too, Brian. Just
and that.
go on, go on. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm a writer, so I love metaphor. Uh, so we're attracted to light, and so we get into a relationship with a woman, and then what happens is a lot of times women stop, they lose themselves, and by lose themselves, what I take that to mean is they start shrinking themselves so that they can fit into what they think this man wants them to be, and probably what that man is even telling her he wants her to be. And that's another side of the equation. I just want to focus on the woman's role right now, her part. So she's shrinking herself. She's diminishing her light, the very thing that attracted him in the first place. And why was she radiating light? Because she was taking care of herself. She was hanging out with her girlfriends, right? She was doing the things that make her feel like a woman, just kind of being one of the girls. And a man sees that, he's like, ooh, I want that. And so now we're together, and she stops doing those things that made her feel like one of the girls. And the man, her luster starts to fade a little bit. And so, the man is like, well, and he has his role. He's playing his own role in this, by the way. Nobody's innocent, but nobody's guilty either. We're all innocent in our ignorance. I want to be really clear about that. If we knew how to do this stuff better, we would do it better.
Agreed.
But we just don't. So I want to be clear about that.
Most of us would do it better. There's a lot of men and women that have commitment issues. That I don't know what just
I'm
happened.
here.
Yeah, most of them want to do it better, but there are a lot of men and women that do have commitment issues or are commitment phobic that really want to kind of crash and burn in their relationships because they don't want to get them to a certain level. And you can touch on that a little later,
Sure.
if you will.
Yeah. Well, because I honestly believe that we would all do it better if we knew how to. Even commitment issues are really a product of ignorance and maybe immaturity or fear that from what they saw as a child or the messages they got. So I believe in the heart of all of us.
Mm-hmm. Good
I
for you.
really do.
I wish
Yeah.
it could be that way about food. I wish once we knew how to eat better, all of us could eat
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
So let me ask you something, and I kind of want to shift topic a
Sure.
little bit. Something I have noticed, and also, talking to, well, I'm not even going to throw the girlfriends in, but I think just probably the type of man that I'm used to dating. I was in a 10-year relationship from age 17 to 27. So that was, through my whole 20s, I was in a relationship. I was engaged. I never took that plunge. I was the commitment phobic. And I've been engaged since then and broke. And yeah. So my question is, there seems to be a need in a man or a desire or this has to be in place before he'll commit to a woman that he's madly in love with. And it's more of the man who might be a little more unconscious than the conscious man. And we'll get into that too. But a need to provide. A need to provide. A need to fully provide. A need to have a certain amount put away. A need to... Or do you feel like that's an excuse that men kind of throw out there? And again, can you talk from both an unconscious man's point of view, a semi-conscious man,
Sure.
and a conscious man? I mean, you're a conscious man. I know you're friends with Paul, and he's definitely a conscious man. He's woke me up a lot as well. But for the average man that maybe hasn't had the same experiences as you, is that an excuse? Is there truth to that? Is there validity to that? Can you explain that?
Yeah, both. I think it's both an excuse and there's truth to it. I mean, the masculine core mission is to provide and protect. As a man, I always want to be in the middle, in between harm's way and chaos and my woman, right? Like whether that means making sure I've got enough money that will be okay this month, or it means just walking on the street side of the sidewalk, in case some crazy car comes barreling down and it takes me out first, whatever. Like there's a core masculine mission to that. Now, so that's truth. Now, a man who is conscious, though, a man who's woken up to the lie that most of us are living in, right? That productivity equals worth, right? That money equals self-worth.
Oh
That's
God.
a lie.
I can't believe you just said that. Wow. Yeah, I was just speaking to someone the other day about this that feels like his worth is totally tied in to his bank account. So please elaborate on that. Wow.
So that's one of the great lies that we're living in, and that's unconscious thinking just buys into that lie, and so that's why people, and men in particular, but women do it also, because that's the cultural story that if I have to work, I have to have a job where I wear a suit and I work 9 to 5 or I work 70 hours a week and I have this type of car and this type of home. Only then do I feel good about myself.
Or women in the way they look,
Women in the way they look, sure.
Is tied into the way.
Absolutely.
Being a former.
You still there?
Model.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
So that's kind of the unconscious thinking, and in that world, a man is going to throw things like, well, he's going to be scared to spend his money. Number one, I mean, you're going to find a lot of kind of stingy men in that world, or they may spend their money a lot, but they're doing it because they're trying to get something in return for it. If I spend this money, then I'm worthy of your love and you own me,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So that's kind of the unconscious story.
So does that come even after they've been intimate with the woman, that they'll continue to kind of spend like that?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. If they want, this is also called a stage one intimate relationship, a stage one experience. Stage one, there's 3 stages. And stage one is this kind of dependency relationship where, it typically plays out. So a man shows up with money, woman shows up with her body and her beauty, right? And that's the trade we make, right? In this stage one. As long as I have the money, you'll bring the honey, so to speak. Right? Nice. But if I don't have the money, there ain't no more honey, right? Or if you, or in a man's mind, if you stop looking attractive, if you get fat or get this or get what, then I'm going to take my money, right? So that's kind of what happens in that stage one mentality, and that's again a very kind of unconscious way of living, and that's where a lot of our relationships play out, sadly.
I agree. What would you say to a man that really feels that his self-worth is tied into his bank account? What could you say to a man that directly correlates the two?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he already believes that. He already knows that. He's buying into the story. And this is a lot of the work that I do with men. I had to do this with myself. I mean, this is an ongoing journey, right? So I've had to have my own breakthrough where, look, I had all the money. I had all the comfort. I had a good woman. I had everything. And I was miserable. And I think what men really need to connect with for them to make that breakthrough, there's almost like the recognition that doesn't get you what you really want most. That deep feeling of satisfaction, because as long as you're living in that place where your identity, your self-worth is in your woman, right? Or in your money, your bank account, your things, your job title, your status, all the stuff outside, as long as a man is living in that truth for himself, it's never going to be enough. Never. As soon as his woman stops looking attractive, as soon as she stops being a trophy, he's going to look for another trophy. Right? He's going to... I remember working with a man once who had a 110-foot yacht. It wasn't big enough. He couldn't wait to get his 140-foot yacht. Right? 2 years later, he was in jail on tax evasion. Right? It's never enough. When you're measuring your self-worth in the world around you, it will never be enough.
Interesting.
And
I see the correlation in everything you say. And again, I think this is a serendipitous thing that happened between you and I, and me finding you at this point in my life. And, coming from a woman who, I'm a former fitness model, a former pinup girl, for years my identity has been tied into my looks. And it was probably, I would say, just in the last 2-3 years that as my business grew, people started to want me for my knowledge, or they wanted me to speak somewhere, I was like, oh my gosh, and look, my analytics are evening out because I'm talking from my heart, and I'm so much more than my looks, and this is awesome. And so I think it would be really hard with men, because there is so much pressure put on a man to provide, and especially if they've seen that growing up, especially if that was the MO of their father or their grandfather, etc. And although I don't believe that all men, move on once their, wife or girlfriend, loses her looks or whatever, if they're a man of means, I have been surrounded by men with a lot of money my entire life, and there is a certain pattern that they all do follow, and it's basically of putting the money or the job or I don't know what happened. The money or the job first.
Yeah.
So that's
Yes, to put the money or the job first, and